Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. Today we explore one of the most profound truths of existence, the goodness of God. This is more than a doctrine or an idea. It's the living heartbeat of the universe. The goodness of God is what calls us home. What steadies us in chaos, forgives us in weakness, and lifts us up towards something higher. Joining me for this conversation is Tony, a coach, author, and entrepreneur passionate about understanding life in its fullest meaning. A true global citizen who has lived across 4 continents, Tony brings a unique perspective on faith, purpose, and the universal language of divine goodness. He's also a devoted husband and a father of 2 beautiful girls. So welcome, Tony. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. And today we're going to talk about the goodness of God, which I think is primordial in our existence. So to start us off, we're going to be talking about a good God. And God's goodness isn't theoretical. It's deeply personal. It's the love that meets us when we fail, the mercy that restores hope, and the quiet assurance that the universe is, at its course, benevolent. In this segment, we explore how divine goodness draws us into transformation, trust, showing us that the Creator's love is not just moral perfection, but living compassion guiding every soul back to light. So, Tony, what can you tell us about the goodness of God?
Wow. um, I think the best way I can describe goodness is an ever-present force that is always leading you into progressive experience of life. So it's like there is no fear, there is no negative feeling, I think fear is actually the key word. There's no fear when I interact with God. So for me, all I see is just like a progression of experiencing more and more and more of life. So that would be a way I would talk about the goodness of God, because fundamentally it is completely restorative in every moment and through every season. And if an individual understands that, you are able to interact with God on a deeply personal and yet deeply grateful, from a deeply grateful standpoint, not from a I'm afraid, or I've done something wrong, or perhaps is there like this fear, this loneliness that many of us can have in our
Mm-hmm.
journey on the earth. The understanding of the goodness of God actually takes that away. So for me, if I was just to summarize, I was saying it is really getting to a place where you progressively experience God in a way that is about more and more and more life.
I like this, what you're saying, Tony, and I get that I believe that we went through an evolution. At first, our relationship with God was fear-based. We didn't really know about what was happening around us, and it was a fear of the elements, fear of what was unknown. And I kind of see the point where you might think that the universe and God particularly is not that benevolent. There's so many challenges, so many things. But I think that process also united us, and made us dependent of each other. It made us into communities, into civilizations. But then we get to a point where that model of viewing God, I mean, we progressively understand more about God. We have instances of revelation, the God revealing himself throughout history. And then
Correct.
we progressively move into this idea of a good God. And can you tell us more about this progression and how we evolved from fear-based to love-based in our conception of God?
Yes. So I think the fundamental difference is the fear. I like how you said the fear versus the love base. Like there's this passage in the Bible that I like to think, because growing up I was raised as a Christian, right? And there's this passage that is, what's the whole sum of life? So Solomon, or the writer of Ecclesiastes, talks about this in the progression of his life, the accumulation of wealth, pain, everything. And at the end, it's like he has come to the realization that the point of life is to fear God and to keep his commands. Right?
Okay.
So, and that to me is the highest of the fear system. Because from if you think from an animal standpoint, my background is in animal science, so I work a
Okay.
lot with animals. I have a farm as well, so I work a lot with animals. And when you interact with animals, they function based on instinct, and their
Mm-hmm.
instinct is fight or flight.
Yes.
So that's their primal instinct. Our evolution is the same. We came out of that mindset and we still operate a lot in that. The thing is, we then view God in that way, right? Where
Hmm.
we see God as like either we run away from Him or we want to fight, sort of like, or we use God as a weapon, to fight against others. But all of this stems from our understanding of fear.
Yes.
It's because we are deeply rooted in fear. But thankfully our consciousness has been evolving over time, that now we can move from a concept of, oh, God is this all powerful being, to fear. Like, for in the olden days, it's the volcano represented God, like the most, like, terrifying thing represented God. Like for me, I'm from Yoruba, right? I'm a Yoruba indigene. And when we think of God, we have multiple deities, and we say the most powerful one is Shango, which is the thunder, which is like the same of the
Hmm.
Greek, the all
Seals.
powerful thunder. Yeah.
Seals. Yeah, the one that
And
has
it's
the
like,
lightning.
wow, it terrifies you. And it's like what basically what terrifies us the most is what we enthrone as God, and that's who we attribute God to be. And
Okay.
that was our evolution, right? So it's like, if you're terrified of the fire, that's God. So you worshipped that because you're like, oh my gosh, this is destructive. This is, you know.
You
So
better pay respects so that it doesn't destroy you. It's kind of
correct, and you pay,
placating.
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, correct, and your relation to God then is transactional, because you're
Okay.
always trying to get His approval. So if this all powerful being, if God is this all powerful being that can destroy, like the fire, like the volcano, like the thunder, I'm just a little ant. Like, I'm just this little thing. So I got to do something to earn his favor. So it's transactional. So I come thinking, okay, here's my offering. So if you look at the history of humanity, we've always come with sacrifices to God to please, and or rather than please, to appease the gods and to win their favor. Right? So that's the fear-based system. You are afraid, so you're looking for what to do to get the favor of this life that you are afraid of, or this concept of God that you're afraid of. But there is a higher and a better understanding of God. That's one that is deeply rooted in love. The problem with using the word love is that it's so generic. I love pizza. So does that mean pizza is,
Yeah. You apply it
no,
for anything.
correct. We can use love for everything. So instead, I like to use goodwill
Okay.
and or goodness. But I use goodwill because it takes two things together. It takes an attribute and then it takes an intention and brings it together, right? So the good and will. So this is, if we were to think of God now from a standpoint of love, we would say is completely and entirely good and willing his goodness towards us at all time. Like, there is never a time in which we fall out of favor and we have to do certain things to get back into favor. There's never a time that we have to beg for his mercy.
Yeah.
There's never a time that we have to, appease his anger. He's not angry. He's not going to punish us. Like, if you look throughout religion today is basically like, it's like a lifeline of, this is an insurance policy. I got to believe this because I don't know. I'm afraid of the next life. I'm afraid of life after death. Not even just life after that. I'm afraid of death. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the
Exactly.
most fundamental fear all
Because
humans
it's going
have,
to
right?
happen. You can't avoid it.
Correct. And there's nothing you can do. So because we and our need to control, to know everything doesn't help. So now we want to live as long as we can and everything, but at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. And because we don't have any control of that, it terrifies us.
Yes.
So religion actually, like, it plays to that part of us by saying, hey, if you grab this insurance policy, there is the outcome you can get in the new life. And it's all based on this system. So if you're a Christian, you're going to believe in this sacrifice of this. If you're Buddhist, of course, Buddhism is a bit different because it does not have such a concept of God as such. But like Hinduism and Islam and all the other religions, they have this like
Yeah.
stuff
All
where,
that have a personality, an image
correct.
of the
And then there are
deity.
things you have to do to earn the favor of God, both in this life, but most especially in the afterlife. because you don't want to be on his bad side. If you're on his bad side in the afterlife, hey, there is hell, there's torment, there's punishment, there's torture, right? So we've taken our animalistic fears and we've created God. You know, someone said God created man in his image and man returned the favor. So we've created God in our own image and likeness based on our fear system of flight or fright or fight, you know, and we've basically just like made God into this and we're trying to get his good side because hey, there's a bad side to him, you know.
Yeah.
So the idea of a good willing God is one of there is no beginning, there is no end to the goodness, there's no limit to the goodness that you can experience, which means there is nothing you can do. You are not this undeserving, weak, pathetic being that has to appease the gods. You are a child of God, a family member. You are not, in fact, let's even remove God. I like to remove the idea of God because it can mean different things. You know, different cultures have different understandings of God. So I like to use the word life because it's
Okay.
completely inclusive. We are all children of life, all of us, all like
I like that.
everything that
Children of
has
life.
breath has life. We are alive. We are all children of life. We don't get to claim to have my life is better than your life. My God is better than your God. You know, we are all children of life, experiencing life. And when you think about it, that wait a second, I am alive. There's this life within me that you can gain awareness of and not just live out the everyday routine of, you know, get up, do this, do that, but there's actual life within you you can engage, you can interact with, and you can, you know, build your confidence in. It really takes away the fear of death.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Because
suits
if
you,
you
I
are conscious
think.
of life, then there's nothing to be afraid of.
Exactly, exactly. This is so important. What you're saying, in that everything is based on fear, and of course, if we everything in the way we view God and the universe is based out of fear, of course, we're going to fear death. I mean, and
Correct.
that's something that if somebody tells you, I have never feared death, I think they're lying. I think everybody
Correct.
at a time has that
Correct.
fear. And I mean, you were talking. There's a lot of stuff that you were talking, and let me point out some of the important things. You were talking about this evolution, and I see, as you were saying in the Old Testament, and maybe the height of the fear-based concept of God. But then, I mean, we see it throughout, and when you see Exodus and you see the story of Moses, I mean, that's a
Correct.
God that had, and I understand because that was a nation-building part of history of civilization.
Correct.
They had to
Correct.
be really God, I think, had to be really strict and, "Okay, you can't do this, you can't you go over
Correct.
there. Here's the commandments, do it." All right?
Yes.
Whether I don't think that at first he was bad and then he was good. No, he was always good, but the way that we interpreted him in that point, it was to stabilize or structure something. But then we have Jesus coming. And then that's, I believe, the point where we really transformed that concept, where he showed us that concept of the loving God, and we left behind, or we can put behind, the fear-based, because you said sacrifices, and we had to appease the gods. And I see, I'm a Mexican, and you see that really when the clash of cultures came, when the Spaniards conquered Mexico. One of the things that they saw were the human sacrifices. And what did they do? I
Correct.
mean, it was blood to give to these gods.
Correct.
And in a way, Christianity, which they took that, and it was Jesus's message, although it wasn't his, but they took Christianity, took that concept and brought it there and basically eradicated and prohibited these practices. So I see that starting with Jesus, we begin to have the revelation of a good God.
Correct. And the most fundamental statement I believe Jesus ever made was our Father.
Yes.
That takes away all like it takes away all fear. It takes away all illusion of distance. It takes away all illusion of bad punitive attitude towards you. Because I am a father, right? I have two daughters, and there is never going to be a point in my life that I have bad intentions towards them, or I want things to go bad for them. I'm never going to wish cancer or death or anything evil on them. Never. All I do every day is to try to create the best life for them, right?
Yeah.
And that is me being human, me being an individual who participates in life, but not the creator of life, right? I'm
Okay.
merely participating in life. Now think about how good the creator of life has to be. Because on if we I tell people, if our concept of God is less than the highest ideal of an individual, we are so off. And then if our worst concept of God is higher than the highest concept of an individual, we are still so off. Like we need to begin to concept, like, to think of God way beyond the greatest ideals of human consciousness and civilization and behavior. So, for example, if you were to say, who is a good person? You would say, oh, a good person is somebody that always treats people well.
Mm-hmm.
When you meet this person, you can trust them. You just know this guy is not going to do this evil to me, right?
Yes. Yes.
That is very low if we want to think of who God is and who life is, because we have to go way beyond that.
Yes.
Because this is
That's
just
like the floor of God, and we need to get to the top.
correct. So if we have a concept of God that is less than that, we are completely wrong. So when you think about the life of Jesus, he is coming to reveal a family. He's using that metaphor of the father, the one whom the kids all run to, the one whom the kids find sustenance from, our Father who is in heaven. And then he says, give us each day our daily bread. So we look to life as both our origin and our sustenance on a day-to-day basis. And we can
Mm-hmm.
actually approach life as children of life for the bare reason that we are alive. Like,
Yes. Yes.
that's the foundation of our interaction with all life. We are children of life. And as such, Jesus really, really, he broke down all the barriers. It's not, oh, if you're Jew, then your God is good. If you are
Yeah.
Christian, your God is this.
He was for everybody, Jew or
Correct.
Gentile,
Jew, Gentile, it
and
didn't
also
matter.
people, and this is we're talking about the dignity of people. I mean, even people that were there considered outcasts or like lepers, he tended them, and
Correct.
broke everything that we
The
can see.
poor, the rich, across the board, we all can say, Our Father. And this is seriously consequential, because if we all have the same Father, then it means we are all one family. And if we are all one family, we should be able to give to one another the goodness, the goodwill we receive from our Father. So that's why he says, we receive your forgiveness as we forgive those who offend us. Because whether we like it or not, in human interactions, there's going to be offense. We're going to do things that we don't
Yes, it's
like.
part of the
We're going to,
process.
correct, we're going to hurt each other. But rather than me holding you hostage and saying, hey, you've hurt me, you got to pay for it. If I'm doing that, it means I don't understand the true nature of life towards me, because every day I make mistakes and life gives me an unending chance to
Mend them. Yes.
amend them every day without me asking. I don't go to bed and say, please give me one more day. I don't beg for one more minute. I simply receive life. I experience life on a day. I go to sleep. Go into unconsciousness. I wake up the next day and I'm conscious again. And I have no control over that. I experience life. The same way
Hmm.
we experience the goodness of life or the goodness of God is the same way we can interact with each other. We should all have a blank slate of forgiveness with every individual, because that is what we have received. And that's the foundation of taking us out of a fear based system into a love based system. first seeing life as our Father, God as our Father, and consequentially seeing each other as members of that same one family.
That is so lovely. Tying this in the concept of pro-life. And we're not, I mean, just to make a disclaimer, this is not the concept of anti-abortion, pro-abortion. This is, what are we talking with pro-life? So to believe in a good God is to revere all life. Every soul has an eternal value. Every heartbeat carries divine intention. Here we explore what it means to see life as sacred, not just biologically, but spiritually. The divine spirit dwells within each person, affirming that no life is accidental, and every act of goodness contributes to the soul's eternal journey. What can you tell us about this pro-life idea concept that you've evolved?
Yes, so for me, over the years, when I was thinking of God, I got to the point where I had to say, okay, God is good. And then when I started to converse with people that God is good, I realized that everyone's like, oh, yeah, of course. When they begin to talk about God, you're like, but that is not a good attribute. You're like, the way you're painting God is not good. So then
Oh,
I said, okay, let
this is
me.
good. This is good. The word you said, attribute. You have to look at
Correct.
the attributes because you were saying, yeah, somebody can just label somebody, but what are the attributes that make them that? So continue, please.
Correct. The attributes that make them that. So for me, this was a personal evolution, right? So then I started to think, okay, when I talk with people, there was the what I'm experiencing within myself, then there's also the interaction I have with people. And when I'm trying to pass along the message of a good God, everybody is like, yeah, 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 we believe that. But then I realize I can't really explain to them how good God is because the attributes they have of God are still bad. But when you say God, they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. So that's why I was like, okay, let me remove God completely from it.
Yes.
Let me say life. And what have I experienced of life? I've experienced life to be progressively good. So that
Okay.
is where I now started to write. And I wrote down in my diary, progressive life. And I was like, this is my religion. So I was like,
Okay. Okay.
my fundamental belief is that there is life within me that is taking me on a progressive journey of experiencing more life. The experience started for me like almost 10 years ago. I was this pro-life experience. I was meditating one time, and I just started to sense this sort of like blurring of who I am
Okay.
and like who I am. Suddenly I started to feel that I was beyond just my identity as my name, my everyday experience, and I was experiencing something that has always been and always will be. And that was the first time I was like, wait a second. This is the essence of life.
You
Like,
felt yourself beyond your limitations, your own
correct.
constrictions. Okay.
Then I started to think on it, right, in the meditation. And then I was like, wait a sec. And thoughts were coming to my mind. And the thoughts were like this. Where do you see yourself in 200 years? I was like, what? Like, well, I'm definitely dead. Like, I'm definitely dead. But I did not feel dead. I felt my response was, I would be in a state where I'm experiencing more of this life. That was what I felt. I felt like it's very strange to explain. It's like
There wasn't a break. I mean, it wasn't a death. It was a continuum of your life.
there
I
was
can
this
relate to that. I had a similar
correct,
experience to that, where
correct,
you do not have time. You just have evolution, progression. Continue.
correct progression. So I felt like, well, 200 years from now, I'll be experiencing a more higher form of life. And then there was no death. And then it was like, okay, 2,000 years from now, even more of it. 200 years, 200,000 years from now, even, okay,
Eternity.
there's no end.
Yes.
Exactly. There is no end. And for the first time, I stopped being afraid because it's I finally began to experience what it means to be a particular life. That death is an illusion, it's just a doorway. death is a doorway to the next and to the next. There is no fear. From that moment, all the fear-based system I had, it just
It
left,
disappeared.
completely disappeared. And from then I just started going everywhere like, well, I'm gonna live forever. like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there is no fear with God. There is no fear. There's this just life and more life. So I started to write it down and write out my own personal experiences. And then I think a year or two later, a year or two ago, I now finally coined it as progressive life. And that
I
is
like
my
it.
experience. And I said, okay, progressive living is my religion. So then I shortened it to pro-life religion. And then I was like, wait. So I went to my wife. I was like, hey, can you believe I've come up with this really amazing concept? And it's like life is progressive and it's this and it's my religion. So I am a pro-life. And she's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, are you having the conversation about abortion or is somebody pregnant or what's going
But I
on?
like this definition much better because it really takes the conflict out and gives us eternal life. And this is interesting, Tony. You're saying, I mean, you're explaining your transformation, and that we all fear death, and like you experienced that. I had a similar experience where I saw, I don't want to say time, but I saw that my continuum in time wasn't going to be interrupted. It was a continuum, even if it wasn't in the material state. It's kind of
Correct.
hard to explain. But
Correct.
the question here is, how can someone that is listening to us and that has a fear of death and has fear based insecurities, what can they do in their everyday living to get to this point where they can see that there's pro-life, that there's continuum beyond this material existence?
There is a system of meditation have practiced for pretty much all my life. And I'm going to explain it, and this is what got me there, but it's not a system for everybody. It's not a cookie cutter thing or any of
Okay.
that. It's my personal experience. But when people ask me, I tell it to them. So from a young age, I used to get up at night, actually not by myself. My dad is a pastor, and every night he got up every night at 2 a.m. And there was this really squeaky door. We had a room, a prayer room, and a personal study room. He would go from the master bedroom to that prayer room, but the door to that prayer room was so squeaky that at 2 a.m. it will wake me up because I'm a very light sleeper. So over years, I started from the age of like 5, 6, 7, I started to realize my dad wakes up every night. And then I asked him one time, I was like, Dad, what do you do? You wake up it's like he goes to pray. So I was like, okay, every night. So then I started to listen. When I would hear the squeaky door, I would get up as well and I would just kneel beside my bed. And I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I'm just like, well, dad must be praying somewhere. Let me also try this out. So I started to do that and I did that for years and years until I got into a state where one day I was I was meditating and I was praying and I started to say something over and over, which was, I am in you and you are in me. And that was it. And all my prayer up until that point stopped. That became all of my prayer, even till today. Because I got to this state where I realized not only is divine presence in me, I am also in this divine presence. It's a union of life. And that became my meditation. So when I
Your
want to
mantra,
meditate,
your
eh,
thing that repeats and reaffirms you. It's an archetype that structures everything that you
correct,
see, your
correct,
cells, everything.
correct. So when I want to meditate, I simply sit or whatever posture that is comfortable, and I begin to center myself around that. I am in you and you are in me. And I just focus on that. Every cell of my being is experiencing your life. And at the same time, the divine is experiencing me.
This is important, and we're going to talk about this. Yes.
Yeah.
Continue.
So it's a two-way stream, and it's a collaborative stream where you're both experiencing one, and it's over time it unifies into one life. So that's what I do. So when people ask me, I've thought when I used to coach people in spiritual coaching or anything, even health and stuff, I just tell, they ask me, okay, so how do you meditate or how do you pray? I tell them my prayer is very simple. I am in you and you're in me. That's it.
We're part of the life. It's this
Correct.
and I like your concept because that is evolution. And that
Correct.
it's not only our individual evolution, but we're evolving here on earth as humanity. We're
Yes.
also evolving universally as the universe. And I love this
Correct.
concept. Maybe people are going to hear it for the first time, but the concept of God the Supreme. And I like this because we are all God the Supreme. I mean, God has many attributes, and he has personality, and he's the everything. But since he's the first source and center controller, upholder of everything, he's in the center, and everything revolves
Correct.
around that. So how can he experience that? How can he really, enjoy and experience his universe? He has to do it through us. So
Correct.
not only are we trying to reach for God, he is living each individual experience, good, bad, or whatnot, when we err, when we are good. So that really makes us part of a whole that is evolving, a part of of this concept of the supreme, that eventually we will all be perfected. And I love that.
Correct.
We're in God is in paradise and he's already perfect, but everybody that's in the worlds of time and space is evolving from imperfection to perfection. And I really love
Correct.
that because it's just what you're saying. It's I, an individual pro-life, going into this evolution of the whole.
Correct. And it became something where I would tell people, oh, people used to tell me, oh, well, if you don't believe in this, then you're going to hell. And then I would say to them, well, God is in hell. And they'll be like, what do you mean? How dare you say God is in hell? I'm like, well,
God is everywhere.
who is going to sustain life? if you believe somehow that there is a place of torment and torture, who sustains the
Yes,
like
yes.
so
Yeah. And you know why I use so much, why I like Star Wars so much? Because there is a battle between good and evil, the dark side and the bright side. But the force is overarching. It does not distinguish who's bad and who's good. Only the
correct.
way that you use goodness and badness. But it's an overarching force that does not care about the consequence. I mean, it does care about the consequences, but it's not on one side or the other. It lets it play out, and it lets
There is
the
no
individuals
darkness,
outplay it.
there's no absence of its presence.
Exactly.
So, and well, of course I don't believe in the concept of hell as such, like
Me
from a
either.
theological standpoint of Christianity, but I used to use that as an illustration for people. Why? Because it knocks out their fear. Because if you're afraid of something, whatever fear you have is an aspect of your consciousness that God has not yet like invaded, pretty much. Because or rather, it's not that God hasn't gotten, it's that you have not evolved to realize that God is already there.
Yeah.
Because
And
we
he's
are
already
starting
forgiven you. He's already
correct.
forgiven you, accepted you.
Correct. We are starting from ignorance into knowledge, right? So we will say things, we will do things without knowing. And when we get into the knowledge, that is not when knowledge began. Knowledge always is, but we just were not there yet, and now we're experiencing it. So that's the same thing of the idea of the supreme being. For me, I like, w- I never knew that word, that concept until a few years ago. And when I found, I was like, this is what I've been telling people.
This is it.
I've been telling people. I remember it was heresy when I told some friends that, do you realize that God evolves with you? And it's like, no, God is perfect. God is this. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But do you realize that God is experiencing your experience, which means there is something unique that is acquiring from being with you and in you and through you. And you at the same time are experiencing God. So there's going to come to a point in which God has a full awareness of you, and you have a full awareness of God. And at such a time, life is whole. Who you
Yes.
are is whole. So it's like there's this journey, and at some point it merges, and that is who you are becoming.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
who you are becoming. And when you tell people this, they're like, okay, it's because it's still a difficult concept, because on one end, people really struggle to see that God is in them. And the reason is because
It's
we've been
merging
so
with you.
beaten down.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We've been so
I love.
beaten down, and we've been
Uh,
told that you are a terrible human, you are a sinner, you need you need something
you're not worthy.
beyond
You're
you.
not worthy to
You're not
receive God, but
worthy.
actually, God is inside of you already.
Correct, correct,
You just have to discover him, and this is very interesting, Tony. I mean, it's that fragment that lives within us, and both you
correct.
and I believe and are confident in, and we let that divine spark guide us. And I think this is very important that we all hear that still small voice inside of us that is trying to merge. And I love this concept of how we're becoming one with God, and eventually, and it's hard to grasp because you have to kind of, it's very intangible, because in one part you have God as a personality in the center of the universe, but he is also distributed around the universe in fragments. When you try to understand these concepts that are so beyond, and how can one be a personality and then indwell the entire universe? And I love it's a story. There was this kid that was playing on the beach, and he was trying to fill, he was filling a hole with the water of the ocean, and a man came around and said, "What are you trying to do?" He's saying, I'm trying to fill this hole. I'm putting the ocean into this hole." And he says, "Oh, poor kid, do you think you'll be able to fit the ocean in that hole?" And the kid replies, "Do you think you'll be able to fit God's mind in your own?" So that's the enormity of trying to understand God. You just
Correct.
enjoy it, and you refresh in the waves, and be united with him, you know?
Yes. I think it's very important for all individuals to pay more time to observe life.
Yes.
Because if you I remember one time I was in Switzerland, I was having a physio session, and my physio teacher was talking about nature bathing. She had found this like a course about bathing in nature, which is just going and soaking in life. And my first instinct was like, that's ridiculous. Don't people already know that there is life all around them? But then I was like, wait a second. Isn't that what I do when I go out into the garden? And he's the same.
Exactly.
He's like, accepted, you know? And that's the reality. We all need to stop several times a day to realize that we are experiencing life, and life is experiencing us. And it's not just me, it's not just you, it's everything. It's the trees, it's the plants, it's the dogs, the cats, the snakes, even those that don't like snakes. It's everything.
We're
All
part
of
of
life.
everything. Yes.
Exactly. And we're all experiencing life. Like I'll use a story that happened to me that's really, really made a difference. So several years ago, when I was a student, I used to work in the kitchen in my university to fund my studies and take care of myself. So I'll go to class in the day, and in the evening I'll work in the kitchen. So while I'm working, you interact with other students, they bring the dishes and everything, you're interacting with them, and you talk, you're just talking and everything. And then one day, one lady just comes to the counter, drops her dishes, chats like 20 seconds and goes. And the moment she goes, I get this thought of this question dropped in my mind. It was like, did you see me? And I was like, there are these random thoughts that drop into your mind where you're like, where did that come from? you know? And it's like, did you see me? And I was like, what? Now because I spend a lot of time meditating, I'm used to having these random thoughts dropping in my mind. So I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I just chatted with you. Did you see me? And I was like, that's true. And then the thought was like, every interaction you have with any form of life is you interacting with me. And it completely, so it was a mundane
This is
interaction
so
of
beautiful,
taking
but it is.
dishes. Yeah, it's like a mundane interaction. I just took a dish. Hey, how are you? How's school? How's everything? Oh, thank you. Bye bye. I'm just doing regular mundane things. And that's our life. We mostly just do mundane things. We go to the 9 to 5. We just do stuff. But we need to pause to realize that, hey, that boss you have at work that you absolutely hate, you are interacting with God. Like, you're interacting with
Find a
God.
way to get around that hate.
Find a way to get around that hatred. Your spouse, your kids, your uncle that you never want to see at Christmas. All of these things, the pain that you feel, the desperation, the loneliness, the hurt, you're experiencing life, and you're not alone. Like, it's not just you, this solitary being in all of the universe, just having this unique, lonely experience. No, life is with you experiencing it, and you're not alone.
Oh, this is so beautiful, and I really like that. The ultimate response to divine goodness is to live it. A divine life isn't about escaping the world, but transforming it, infusing love into action, courage into service, and faith into every moment. In this final segment, we reflect on what it means to align with truth, beauty, and goodness, to live in harmony with God's will, and to experience joy, peace, and purpose as signs of our eternal connection to the divine. So, Tony, how can we, like you're saying, in this mundane world, in our day-to-day, in our material, how can we live this divine life?
I'll give another mantra.
Yes, yes, I love
And
mantras.
it's a personal one, so there's no copyright on it. But
Thank you.
creates each person listening should create their own. But for me, this also came out of a meditation, where I was meditating a couple years ago, and I when I started to like experience this life, so I was like, so what's the point? So I asked myself, so what's the point of my life?
Mm-hmm.
And it was for you to cooperate with the divine life within you and to collaborate with the divine life within others.
Okay.
Because on one end, our Father, right? The idea of God as our Father, our universal Father. I experience that life. There's nothing I've done to earn that. I just experience that life. So I just cooperate with it. I don't have to fight. I don't have to beg. I don't have to ask for it. It's freely
Mm-hmm.
given
Yes.
to me. So there's nothing I have done that has helped me to get more of God. God is in me, is in you, is in everyone. Life is in me, life is in you, life is in everyone. So I just have to wake up every day, acknowledge that, and cooperate with it on a daily basis, work together with it, know that I am united with this. But then I'm going to come across other people, right? I am not an
You're gonna have to
isolated
take that
individual.
beyond yourself.
Exactly. So that inner life has to have an outward expression. And the ultimate outward expression I could come up with was collaboration. Because
Okay.
in collaboration, you are thinking togetherness. You have goodwill towards each other, and you're like, hey, how do we work together? And this for me is, I believe fundamentally that every individual who has attained any form of spiritual consciousness or awareness should, in one way or the other, be seeking to help others to experience some sort of restoration. The reason being, we are all broken in one way or another, but we all experience one aspect of God that is unique. We experience something that is unique. In our ability to restore others, we collaborate with them to experience more of God. And the best way you can collaborate with an individual is to always have goodwill towards them.
Yes.
The goodwill you've received, you just show the same goodwill. If that's your attitude, even if the other individual doesn't want to collaborate with you or whatever, doesn't want to, doesn't like you or hates your guts or all of this, yeah,
You can
fine.
control that
You
any
can't
anyway.
control
So
that. but your own attitude and your state of mind should be goodwill. The same goodwill that you've received. You don't have to create it. You don't have to force yourself to like somebody. You don't have to, like you don't have to go and pray for you to get the strength to like somebody.
This is
What?
important.
Yeah,
This is important because everybody's all, and let me just make a point here, because one thing that happened to me is, why do I have negative feelings against this person? And you're like trying to tell yourself, no, but when you start to realize and say, why? Because maybe I felt this about him, he did this and did that. And then you go a step beyond and you look at what that person went through, what he suffered, and you kind of comprehend where that came from, and it's not personal. And you take
correct,
that out and you see
correct,
beyond that. So
correct.
that's just wanted to make that disclaimer. So go ahead, please continue,
Because
Tony.
you yourself, or I myself, I have also done things to people that has hurt them. We are
You
all
recognize
imperfect. We are
that's
all
part of the
imperfect.
Lord's prayer.
Correct.
It's there. If the Lord put it
Correct.
in there, it's so important that we must heed to it.
Correct. So if you realize that, if you have goodwill towards people, that goodwill is a seed you sow that also allows you to receive goodwill from them. And for some people, they recognize it quickly. For others, it takes them years. Some people, it's not going to be you that gets them there, right? But if we can be consistent with showing the goodwill that we have received, because it starts first from receiving it. Our understanding of life and our understanding of God is the foundation of our interaction with others. If you think God is distant, then people are distant. If you think God punishes you for your wrongdoings, then you seek to punish others for their wrongdoings. You will need a reason to forgive. Oh, if they've not apologized, no, I can't forgive. If they've not paid for their wrongdoing, then I can't forgive. But your expression with people, your interaction with people is proof of your experience of God.
I
Because
really
we
like
can
this.
only give what we have received. That's it. We can only give what we have within us. So if an individual finds themselves really struggling to interact with people, to love them, to treat them, you're always angry, you're always fighting or whatever, you don't have to go and do some personal work on becoming a better person. You just
And it's
need
important, that personal work, and like any mental exercise, physical exercise, a spiritual exercise is needed. And like any
correct,
exercise, when you start studying or when you start doing the first push-ups, it's going to be hard. But the
correct,
consistency that you're saying, the repetition, and the purpose, this goodwill purpose that you're saying, that even though I'm in an imperfect world that is perfecting, and that bad things are happening, and that I am contributing in some cases to those bad things because of my imperfections.
correct,
Nonetheless, I can always correct them. I can always, and
correct.
that's so beautiful that we cannot, I mean, we can always evolve. And that is something that I want our viewers to take, It's the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the
With a
first
step.
step.
Correct.
Continue,
And
please,
I
Tony.
would say the very first step is getting your cup filled.
Okay.
Getting your cup filled from that means getting to experience more life, getting to experience more of God. Because if you like, there is only so much you can use willpower to do. you know, at at some point your natural
Yeah.
self is gonna come out.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, and I think that's why we're here in this arena. It's we're not in a uh, idle state. We're always pushing full force and full revolutions, and
Correct.
see if the engine breaks, right? And
Correct.
that's the
Correct.
idea, to take it to the clashes in life, and that sometimes we see like these misfortunes. But I always say
Yes.
misfortunes are fortunes in disguise if you know how to take the wisdom out of them, the experience
Correct.
and the evolution, like you're saying, of pro-life.
Correct. Correct. So if you should begin every day as much as possible and end every day to try to just fill up your cup. You're not asking anything from God. You're not trying to appease him. You're just receiving his goodness. Just sit, receive his goodness, receive his forgiveness, receive his love. Then when you go out, Just try to give it. And if you were not able to do it today, it's fine. You will learn again. You will keep learning and you will keep learning. You will keep improving. That is it. But if you try to give what you don't have, you will exhaust yourself, you know? So start by receiving and experiencing that good will, that good love from God on a daily basis. Then simply go out there and do the same. In fact, it will flow naturally over time. You know, it will flow naturally over.
It becomes a habit, and then it becomes, you know, and like I always like this, that thoughts become, you know, a process, and I don't know,
Yeah,
I don't
thoughts,
remember the entire,
actions,
but in
habits.
the end,
Yeah, correct.
habits become you. So yes,
Correct.
and you know, and it's interesting because one time, you know, I was talking about prayer, and we're at, you know, how to pray and everything, and I came to realize and said, you know, I don't pray that much. I mean, I don't have, but then I realized and I said, you do pray because you're constantly in communion with God. Even when, like, when I'm
Correct.
walking, when I'm doing something, I realize that I'm conversing with God. I'm not only, you know, I'm not in isolated. I have a dialogue, and I didn't realize I constantly check and I ask and I have a personal dialogue with God, and that is a sort of prayer. And when you get to that point where your mundane life is God is there, and there will be difficult times. I'm not kidding anybody. I mean, that you feel
Definitely.
despair and that
Yes.
you feel lost, and it's in that despair and that sense of being lost, then you cling to your faith, and that is so powerful because that takes you out of, you know, being in an absolute state of, you know, not being to do anything, and the
Yes.
power within that faith, you know, really gets the impossible done.
Very
Miracles
true.
happen.
Very, very true. Like I want to say something because sometimes when we talk about spiritual things and good stuff, it may sound like a fairy tale, you know? It may sound like a fairy tale. For me personally, I've struggled most of my life with depression. So it's not as though I'm this happy, jumpy person who is great to be around
It
at all
took effort to
times.
get to where you are.
Every day it's a separate journey. Yesterday I might have been the best, and then today it's a bit of a low, you know? That is being human. And you need to be okay with being human and knowing that this is a journey that I am on, but I am not alone. Life is with me. I'm interacting with life and I'm going to get better. I'm experiencing it. And that's the essence of that progressive life because it's not something you just get once and you're done. You know, it's not a prayer you make and then you're done. You know, it's continuously experiencing this life. And
Yes.
then people around you also begin to experience the overflow from you.
Totally, totally. And you were mentioning a little bit about, you know, these step by steps that you take, and that sometimes, I mean, I don't believe I have enemies, and I don't see anybody as enemies. I see maybe as an antagonist that maybe I have to. He has to learn something. I'm an antagonist for him, and he's an antagonist for me. Because if you take the structure of characters, you know, there's a protagonist and there's the
Yes,
antagonist, and the antagonist not necessarily is not the bad guy. We usually
correct.
consider him the bad guy, but he's the
Because it's
one
a
that is.
resistance against us,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. The antagonist is the person, is the factor that really sets the story in motion so that it can get to a climax and then to a resolution. So
Correct.
if we don't have an antagonist in any story, there is no story. There has to be
Correct.
something that and it might be us. We're our own antagonist, and I think that is it. But one thing that is important in this process, and that we don't see people as enemies, but maybe as an antagonist that is showing us something. I like this concept, is that you don't need to love everybody today, but each day that you love one person is you're in the right path. So this is
Correct.
important. It's not that we're already perfect, but we are perfecting ourselves and we are loving everybody. One of the things that I like about the concept of the brotherhood of God, I mean the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God, is when I recognize you as my brother, if I can truly recognize you and say, you are my brother because we feel alike, we come from the same source, from the same essence. And in just that mathematical equation, if you are my brother, then therefore there is a father, there is a source, a first source and center where we come out of. And that really, boom. makes us into the to the gospel, into the brotherhood of men and the fatherhood of God.
Correct. At the end of the day, we are all one family. I didn't choose the members of my family, but we are all one family. And it's a journey of getting to know how to love each other. Like I saw this phrase, it's like they are no strangers, just friends you haven't met. you
Yes,
know so we're all on a journey, and in that journey there are going to be clashes, there are going to be goods, sads, everything, but it's part of the story.
yes,
It's part of the story. There are people that are going to be born with disabilities or challenges, right? That's part of their story. It's a unique expression of God. God is going to find his way to reveal himself through them and to them, right? So each person is bringing a very unique story, a very unique aspect of God, and as such of themselves. And we need to work together, to collaborate together, to create a world in which all voices matter and
yes.
all stories matter, because then can we begin to actually piece together like a more comprehensive, collaborative, ideal, good picture of God.
I like this. I like this. And yes, the more we really see ourselves and in the struggles, because like you're saying, we're unique, and each person, maybe I can never relate to somebody, I know, that is different. I mean, there's sometimes things that I can relate to and some others that maybe not. But when we realize that we're all, the feelings that this person has to go through, I mean, that happen when he goes through his process, are maybe the same feelings that I go through my process. So the feelings are the same. And that's how we connect. Not in our individual. I know if I hit myself, it's going to hurt. If you hit yourself,
Yes.
it's going to hurt. It's the same feeling. We know what hurt means,
We can't
right?
create new feelings.
Exactly. It's we can only share them and express them.
Correct.
And remember when, because I used to be a musician, and I remember when this is an interesting story. When back in the day, it was still MySpace. It wasn't. It was 20 some years ago, and everything was starting to go public. And I would get some fans, and they would, thank you, and they would interpret the lyrics. And when you write music, it's from your own personal experience. And you write it from what happened to you. In many cases, but in their expression, they said, "I relate to this because of this," and they had their own view of that song. And to me, it was such amazing thing that through my art, through my poetry, because it's a song, but it's a poem, they were able to express their emotions, their feelings, and we were connected there. So that was very, very revealing to me, that how that's why art and music is so important, because that's where we, boom, explode of all of our emotions, and we come together.
That is the reality, because we can't create new feelings, but
Hmm.
we can share in the same feelings. So you
Exactly.
can listen to a song that somebody has written, and it's like they wrote it for you, or like they wrote out your thoughts into their words, because we can share in it. So like I like this illustration of because I work with animals, and
Hmm.
I'll tell you a very, very interesting story.
Yes.
When you work with animals, most people that have a fear-based system, and I see this a lot because I've worked with animals both in the West, like Australia, Canada, and then I've also worked with animals in like Africa. And in Africa it's different, right? Because it's force. You try to use force to control animals because you
Okay.
are afraid of them. So you always
Okay.
have a very big stick. So you are afraid that they're going to get you. So I've got crocodiles, right? And people are always terrified of them. So when people want to work with them, they have this very long, like 15-foot pole to, to create some distance with them. And that's because we are afraid. We are fearful of them. And the thing is, I keep telling my team and my staff, like, you don't have to be afraid of these animals because they are more afraid of you. They are in your world. You are not in their world. They are in your
Yes.
world
Yes.
because you took them, you put them in this space. They depend 100% on you. You
Yeah.
just need to understand them. You need to learn to understand them. And it's the same. If you watch lots of like for example, people are very afraid of snakes, right? And maybe they have a reason to be, because snakes are venomous and all of that. Many of them are. But you can also be in the different culture, like Australia, where people are not afraid of snakes and such. And they even learn how to handle snakes, how to live together with snakes. And here, right at the moment, I'm in India, and there are entire places where people live with cobras. They collaborate with cobras. These are very deadly. Tomorrow I'm taking my daughters to a cobra park. These are deadly animals, but people are working with them.
Yeah, yeah,
If you are afraid, we say in the animal, when you work with animals, if you are afraid, the animal will sense it
yeah.
and then it interacts with you that same way. Right? So I
And
say this.
emotions.
Correct. So I say this, for example, in the context of when you're interacting with somebody who doesn't like you, just picture yourself like them. You have also been in their shoes. They are afraid of something.
True.
It's not personal. They are
Exactly.
afraid of
That's what I
something.
was saying. Once you see
Correct.
their story, you see that it's not personal.
Correct.
And you feel compassion in many cases.
Correct. And then when we experience negative emotion, whether it's anger, and by negative, I don't mean bad, it's just a different expression, right? When we experience it with people, there are ways to walk through it to get into a better state of more alignment, you know,
Yes.
and more goodwill towards people. But this, of course, this takes time, this takes, you know, effort, but the fundamental of it is goodwill towards the individual. And that's why music and creativity is one of the best forms of goodwill, because somebody is expressing themselves and we can join in that creativity. We can join in it and be a part of their experience. That is life. We're actually sharing in their life in it, right? And that's why we are fans. We are fans of their life, right? We
Yes,
are
yes, I
sharing
like this.
in their life. It's the same we can with negative emotion. We can also interact with it in a way where we first acknowledge that the person has a right to feel that way. Hey, you're angry. It's okay. I have been angry too. This is not a unique experience. We all experience anger. You want to chop my head off? Yes, I've been there too. I wanted to do this. And we can de escalate. But we first have to share with the person to show, hey, we're on the same page here. We're not against each other here. I
Exactly.
understand where you're coming from. How can we get to a place where we can be on the same page and we can actually have mutual goodwill towards each other? And that's going to take work. It's going to take a long, long time for all of civilization to get to a place where we have goodwill towards each other, but I'm happy that the progressive life is we're all on
Will
that journey.
eventually get us there.
We're gonna get
Eventually.
there. We're
Yes,
gonna get
exactly.
there,
And that's so
definitely.
beautiful. That's so beautiful that to see that even though we may feel that this is slow and that we're not getting nowhere, universe and God has its time and eventually everything happens. So
Correct.
well, thanks a lot, Tony. This is the end of our show. It's been really, really interesting. I really like your view on pro-life, the concept of how we have the life beyond us and how we merge with living with everybody. So, any closing remarks before we go?
Yes. Let me think. Let me just say this. First of all, you're not alone, and I say this to all our listeners. You're not alone. Second, you don't need to go and find God somewhere else. Life is already within you. You experience it on a daily basis. Just listen. Just receive the divine goodwill within you and work with it. And then you'll be able to work with others in a collaborative way. And if you need any practical tips or any mantras to use, of course, you can use the I'm in you, you're in me to help yourself center. If you do that several times a day, There was a time I set an alarm on my watch to do it every hour. This is like 15 years ago because I was really struggling, like I
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
you are in me,
You had a
so
lot,
if you
you had
do
to put in a lot of effort to get to the next step.
correct. I had to do that. I had to really change and renew my mind, right? So if you need to do that, to sit in a place to do that regularly, it will help. If you have any other mantra you use, sure, use that as well. But just know you are not trying to earn anything. You are experiencing life, and we are all experiencing it together. And really part, I'm really happy to be part of this time of life.
Likewise, Tony. Well, thanks a lot, brother. I think we're going to have to continue this conversation at another time. I mean, we're going to have to set up another show because we have a lot of things that we can talk about. But thank
Correct.
you for your participation. Thank you for all this loving wisdom that you brought us. And I also want to thank our viewers for watching us. If you liked the program, and only if you liked it, please subscribe. You can also put in the notifications, and also tell people that there's these bunch of guys at this podcast that talk about nice things that make you
Yes.
warm and fuzzy. Maybe that's your contribution into putting them to learning more about God. So remember that we're all part of God's family. We're living in life, and that we're all brothers. I'm
Yes.
Santiago Kneeland. This is the Divine Within. Take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.